Hey everybody, got a treat today. The draw for the 2019 AFC Asian Cup was released today, a tournament that will take place in January. It's a quadrennial tournament, just like the World Cup takes place 6 or 7 months after the World Cup. Can't believe it's already time for another Asian Cup in just a few months. But this time, it's going to be expanded to 24 teams. 2019 is going to see a change in international football. You're going to see a lot of continental tournaments shift over to a larger format. The CONCACAF Gold Cup will have 16 nations. African Cup of Nations will have 24. And the Asian Cup will have 24 for the first time ever. Also, 2019, a lot of international competitions in general. But this time, the 2019 Asian Cup will be hosted in the United Arab Emirates. I'm really excited. I actually have a friend in the UAE who, if my financial situation's okay, I may go visit next winter, which I imagine the weather will be very mild and it'll be really nice over there, not as cold as it is here. And maybe I'll get to see the Asian Cup with him in some of the stadiums there. But in this video, I want to go through the groups, and I want to give my early predictions for the tournament. So let's jump right in. So in Group A, we have the United Arab Emirates, Thailand, India, and Bahrain. Now, you're going to see a lot of teams here that have benefited from the expansion, that have qualified for the first time ever for the Asian Cup, as well as a lot of teams who are getting back to the tournament after a long hiatus. So in Group E is UAE, Thailand, India, and Bahrain. Group B is Australia, Syria, Palestine, and Jordan. Group C is South Korea, China, Kyrgyzstan, and the Philippines. Group D is Iran, Iraq, Vietnam, and Yemen. Group E is Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Lebanon, and North Korea. And Group F is Japan, Uzbekistan, Oman, and Turkmenistan. So, predictions. Keep in mind, because it is a 24-team format, the 2 best teams from each group advance, and the 4 best third-placed teams go through as well. That is essential. In Group A, the United Arab Emirates actually got the 3rd place finish in the last Asian Cup in 2015 in Australia, very much unexpectedly getting the bronze medal with young stars like Abdul Rahman and Motayeb. They reached the final of this year's Arab Nations Cup, where they lost on penalties to Oman. UAE on the up in Western Asia in recent years. So when they host the tournament in 2019, there will be that added pressure as hosts to go that extra step, maybe get back to the semifinals again, or one step further into the final, to show that 2015 was not just a spell of good form and luck. So this group is not the hardest, with Thailand. Thailand, very much the best team in the Southeast Asian region. They got to the final round of Asian qualifying with the final 12 teams. They are coached by the same Serbian manager that took Ghana to the quarterfinals back in 2010 in the World Cup. Yes, the same guy. He's a decent manager. India are back in it. They missed out in 2015, but they are in every other year, every other Asian Cup kind of side. India still developing as a nation in Asia and football, where football takes the back seat to other sports such as cricket. And then we have Bahrain, the unfortunate story of a team who could have gotten to at least one of the World Cups back in either 2006 or 2010, failing to qualify for the World Cup through the Intercontinental Playoff on both occasions. Very much a team in decline in the last decade or so. It's really sad because Bahrain were probably a top 5 team in Asia back in the early to mid-2000s, in my estimation. I remember that Bahrain team. I thought they were quite unlucky not to get to at least one World Cup But in recent years, they just haven't really been up for it. And I think they're the third worst team in this group. I do think I put Thailand ahead of them at the current moment. UAE should top this group. And I'm going to go with Thailand to come in second, but I do think Bahrain have too much quality still for India. India should finish bottom of this group. Bahrain in third. Will Bahrain advance as one of the third-place teams? That remains to be seen. Let me go through the groups first, and then I'll get back to the fourth third-place teams I think will advance. So in Group B is Australia, Syria, Palestine, and Jordan. Australia, the current Asian champions, becoming sort of World Cup regulars now from the Asian region. Going up against Syria, so the rematch of the playoff in qualifying for 2018 that saw the winner of that play Honduras in the Intercontinental playoff, which we know ended up being Australia since they qualified for the World Cup in Russia. Syria, this provides them an excellent opportunity to get some revenge here. Syria were very much the Cinderella story of 2018 Asian qualifying, getting as far as they did very much unexpectedly, with great results such as victories over Uzbekistan, draws with South Korea, and even a draw in the final match day against Iran in the Azadi Stadium in Tehran. Palestine, they have sort of been on the up as well recently. It's actually incredible because Palestinian football has always lived in the shadow of Israeli football. But nowadays, it's an arguable case can be made that Palestine national team is better than the Israeli national team. Palestine were in the last Asian Cup, so this is not their first appearance. They put in a respectable performance in the last Asian Cup, even though they were dispatched, losing all of their games. I think they're better now 4 years later. And Jordan, who are also in Palestine's group 4 years ago, they defeated Palestine 5-1 in a huge drubbing. But in the last 4 years, Jordan have been on the decline. So you see what's interesting here, heading into this Asian Cup, a lot of sides that were minnows previously have improved, while some of the more regulars have been in a slip of form. Jordan did not even get to the final round of qualifying, the final 12 teams in 2018 Asian qualifying, which was a massive disappointment considering they got to the Intercontinental playoff 4 years previously against Uruguay. So in this group, Australia, Syria, Palestine, Jordan, on paper it looks simple for Australia, but I don't think that's the case at all. I'm actually going with a little bit of a surprise here. I think Syria will get revenge, and they will top this group. Second place, I think Australia still has just too much quality. They are the current Asian champions. They are one of the best teams in Asia. So I'm picking Australia to come in second here. And in third place, get this, in the rematch between Palestine and Jordan from 2015, I'm going with Palestine to finish third in this group. I don't think Jordan will advance. They will finish in bottom. Group C, we have South Korea, China, Kyrgyzstan, and the Philippines. Two nations here that have qualified for their first ever Asian Cup in the Philippines and Kyrgyzstan. South Korea and China stand out as the two clear favorites in this group. China, of course, winning all of their games in the last Asian Cup, which was a slight upset, but China very much a team that came close in 2018 qualifying to getting the playoff spot under Marcello Lippi, who has really had a handy role in revamping the Chinese league from the domestic level all the way up to the national team. Remember, he was the manager that took Italy to the World Cup glory back in 2006, also managed Chinese club Guangzhou Evergrande in the AFC Asian Cup Club World Cup, won a couple of them with Guangzhou Evergrande. China, in my opinion, one day will be a superpower in the sport of soccer. I do think they will be. South Korea, I think they still have too much quality. I could see China winning this group because South Korea has been known to play down to the level of their opponents in Asia. I like to refer to them as the Portugal of Asia. They usually play down to the level of their opponent. As we saw in qualifying when they actually lost on the road in China, and they lost on the road in Qatar. And they just barely scraped through the finish line, finishing in a top 2 spot to get to the World Cup. But South Korea, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I think they will win this group. And for second place, don't sleep on Kyrgyzstan. I know in Central Asia, all the Stan countries, Uzbekistan and Kazakhstan, who plays in Europe, they hog all the attention, but in recent years, you're seeing teams like Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan do well in youth tournaments as well. I remember Tajikistan got a famous victory over the U.S. several years back in an under-17 World Cup. But I think China, they should come in second. And for my money, China are dark horses in this tournament because of the fact that their whole system has been revamped and because Marcello Lippi is at the helm. But I'm going with South Korea to come in first, China to come in second. The Philippines, well done to the Azkals for qualifying for the first ever World Cup. I have a friend, actually, who's Filipina. She's very excited that they qualified for this tournament. I just think that it's one tournament too soon. The inexperience will cost them here. There's not a lot of quality on this Philippine side. They're just happy to be participating. Same thing, but to a lesser extent with Kyrgyzstan. I do think Kyrgyzstan has more meat to their team. So I do think Kyrgyzstan will come in third place in this group. But I'm going with South Korea to win it and China in second. Group D is Iran, Iraq, Vietnam, and Yemen. Team Melly, how about that for a match, Iran versus Iraq? I'm actually making a Fantasy World Cup video in the next few months dedicating this rivalry between these two sides in the Middle East. Iran versus Iraq, as we know, was the best match by far in the 2015 Asian Cup. It ended in a 3-3 thrilling draw that saw Iraq go through on penalties. Every meeting between Iran and Iraq is intense. It's a great rivalry within Asia. I think it's the best rivalry in all of West Asia, in my opinion. They are by far the two best teams in this group, and I would not be surprised if none of the best third-place teams advance from this group, because the gap between Iran and Iraq versus Vietnam and Yemen is vast. Although Iraq did drop points on the road in qualifying in the third round of Asian qualifying in 2018 when they played Vietnam. So Vietnam, if Iraq is not on their A game, they show a little bit of that inconsistency. You could see Vietnam make a case for a top 2 finish. But Iraq always seems to turn up in Asian Cups, but for some reason it never translates into doing anything serious in World Cup qualification. But Asian Cups are an entirely different story for Iraq. I'm very familiar with Iraq as a national team. I do think Iran will top this group with at least 7 points. Iraq will come in second. And between Vietnam and Yemen, I'm going with Vietnam to come in third. But I wouldn't be surprised if both them and Yemen end with 1 point after a draw with each other. So I'm going with Iran and Iraq to advance in that order, with Vietnam in third and Yemen in fourth. Group E, in my opinion, might just be the group of death. It's Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Lebanon, and North Korea. This is an interesting group. Saudi Arabia, they qualified for the World Cup, so they are back now on the international scene. They are the seeded team for this group. They should come through in first, in my opinion. Maybe if they have a good World Cup, it would set into motion a good rhythm for them heading into the Asian Cup. But even if they don't, I still think they're favorites to finish top of this group. Like China, Saudi Arabia is an every other Asian Cup kind of team. I do think they will win this group. They should win every game. And then it's between second for Qatar, Lebanon, and North Korea. Going with a little bit of a surprise here. Qatar is playing 2 big tournaments in 2019. They're playing this, and they were invited to the 2019 Copa America in Brazil. They're not playing any competitive fixtures because they automatically qualify for the 2022 World Cup. So they need all the international exposure and major competition that they can get. So they're playing in the Asian Cup, they're playing in the Copa America, both in 2019. That's basically going to serve as their de facto qualification preparation for the World Cup, since they don't have to qualify. I actually think Qatar is going to finish in last in this group. Now, I know on paper, they're the second best team But I think we're going to see surprise in one of either Lebanon or North Korea. Lebanon getting back to their first Asian Cup, I believe, since hosting it in 2000. I think they're going to be really motivated for this tournament. They qualified in such dramatic fashion. North Korea, believe it or not, has never advanced past the group stages of an Asian Cup ever. They had a very disappointing Asian Cup back in 2015 where they finished bottom of their group. For my money, I've got one of Lebanon or North Korea finishing in second behind Saudi Arabia. And for sake of argument, I've gone with Lebanon to finish in second. And I'm going with North Korea to finish in third. That's right, I don't have Qatar finishing in a top 3 position in this group. I don't. There's got to be some surprises somewhere. I know they reached the final round, the final 12 teams of 2018 qualifying, but I don't think they get through here. I also think they get a thumping in the Copa America, but it will prove valuable to them because they'll be more prepared for the World Cup come 2022 once they get smacked around a little bit in prior international tournaments right before the World Cup. So I've gone with Saudi Arabia in first, Lebanon in second. And Group F is another group that looks easy on paper, but I think it's actually really tough. The second toughest group behind Group E, and that is Group F with Japan, Uzbekistan, Oman, and Turkey. Japan, they win the Asian Cup every other year, except when they won it consecutively in 2000 and 2004. Uzbekistan very much disappointingly finished in 5th place in their group in Asian qualifying on the final match day, where they could have finished anywhere between 2nd and 5th in the table. Because Syria and China leapfrogged them at the last minute, Uzbekistan did end up finishing in 5th. I consider that a slip in form for Uzbekistan. They had a much poorer qualification phase than they did in 2014 when they damn near made it. They missed out on goal difference. I'm picking Uzbekistan to be the flop of this edition's Asian Cup. I do not have Uzbekistan coming through. Oman are the current Gulf nations champion. They had a good run in 2014 World Cup qualifying. Did not get to the final round in 2018, but they did come back strong this year, winning their regional tournament in that penalty shootout victory in the final over the United Arab Emirates. I'm going with Oman to come through this group. Turkmenistan, they're not going to be pushovers either. Turkmenistan put in a really fine performance back in the 2004 Asian Cup, which was hosted in China, where they picked up a couple of draws in their group. So I think Turkmenistan could potentially play spoiler, maybe not necessarily advance, but prevent a better team from going through here as well. Who's going to finish top of this group? I'm going with Oman. Oman will win this group. Japan will come in second. And I think Uzbekistan will come in third, but it will not be good enough. They will not be one of the 4 best third-place teams. That's right. That is right. So what are the 4 best third-place teams I think will go through? I think it will be Bahrain from Group A. It's time for Bahrain to have a good Asian Cup for the first time since 2004. I think they benefit from the fact they have India in their group. They should get 3 points. And then you have to think a draw against Thailand or UAE is possible. That puts Bahrain on 4 points, which in a tournament where the 16 out of 24 teams advance, that most likely puts you through. So I have Bahrain going through. From Group B, I have Palestine going through to the round of 16. From Group C, I have Kyrgyzstan going through for the round of 16. Group D, nobody from the 3rd place position. Group E, I have North Korea as the best 3rd place team. And from Group F, nobody goes through. So the 4 best 3rd place teams will come from Groups A, B, C, and E. So Groups D and F will only send 2 teams into the knockout rounds. So that gives me the knockout phase. And this is the bracket according to how it would shape up to Wikipedia. This is how it would shape up if my predictions are correct. Round of 16, we have Thailand versus China. Iran versus North Korea, Syria versus Bahrain, Oman versus Lebanon, South Korea versus Palestine, Saudi Arabia versus Iraq, UAE versus Kyrgyzstan, and get this, Australia versus Japan as the two runners-up of Groups B and F. Yes, we are going to get a gargantuan matchup as early as the round of 16 between Australia and Japan. One of them is going out in the last 16 because I predicted both of them to finish runners-up in their groups. So, Thailand versus China. Marcello Lippi's Chinese team should get to the quarterfinals. I'm going with a slight upset here. I think it'll be Thailand who goes through it. Their very astute Serbian manager, Milijan Rajevac, I believe. Iran versus North Korea. I'm going with Iran, Team Meli, to pull through strong. Syria, Bahrain. Syria's going through. Oman versus Lebanon. I'm going with the Gulf champions, Oman. South Korea versus Palestine. Good run for Palestine. They put in a spirited performance, but South Korea, the Taeguk Warriors, will go through. Saudi Arabia versus Iraq. This is a rematch of the 2007 final. But here I think Saudi Arabia gets revenge. I know Iraq is very much a tournament team when it comes to the Asian Cup, but I'm going with Saudi Arabia to go to the quarterfinals. And then you have the host nation, United Arab Emirates versus Kyrgyzstan. I'm going with the home nation to pull through. And then Australia versus Japan, a rematch of the 2011 final. Defending champions Australia are bowing out early. Japan will go to the quarterfinals. So the quarterfinals is Thailand, yes, versus Iran, and Syria versus Oman, South Korea versus Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates versus Japan. I have Iran defeating Thailand, Syria continuing their run, showing that 2018 was their rise to prominence, and defeating the Gulf nations champion Oman, getting to the semifinals. I've got South Korea defeating Saudi Arabia, and I've got Japan beating the UAE, the home nation, in the quarterfinals, the same team that eliminated Japan in the quarterfinals of 2015. So yet another revenge angle here. You're seeing a lot of revenge in this tournament. So the semifinals are Iran versus Syria and South Korea versus Japan. I'm going with Iran to end Syria's run and Team Meli to get to the Asian Cup final. South Korea versus Japan, the biggest rivalry in the history of Asia. Japan are the better team, but I'm going with South Korea to get through. I think South Korea gets one on over. They used to dominate. South Korea used to dominate this rivalry. Then in recent years, it started to become more Japan-oriented, Japan-focused. They eliminated South Korea in the semifinals of the 2011 AFC Asian Cup. But I'm going with Hong Sung-min to get South Korea into the final. So the third place match, I have Syria versus Japan. And I think the Samurai Blue will get the bronze medal. So my final early predictions of the 2019 AFC Asian Cup hosted by the United Arab Emirates is Iran versus South Korea. That's my final. And that's a tough one. My winner is Iran. I think the title is going to West Asia. This time, a West Asian nation will win the Asian Cup hosted in West Asia. Iran will defeat South Korea in the final. Team Meli will be the 2019 Asian champions. So I've gone with Iran to win it. South Korea to yet again, for the second time in a row, finish as losers in the final, as they did in 2015. Japan to come in third with the bronze, and Syria finishing in fourth. So those are my predictions. That's my analysis for the Asian Cup draw. That's my reaction, my analysis, and my prediction Leave a comment below, like, subscribe. What do you think? Hopefully I see you tomorrow, guys, God willing. Until then, have a good one. Much love, and peace out.